Welcome back to What Happens in the Woods. You should know the drill by now. My name is Jessica. I'm the host, and with me working the technical part of this shindig is my husband, Bryce.
Hello.
Hello. All right. Now, you're probably wondering, what are we doing back so soon? Like, we just dropped episode 4 last Friday. If you haven't listened yet, all I got to say is, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
What are you doing with your life?
Seriously, we're going to call this a bonus episode, and we just kind of have a little extra time on our hands right now. You guys have some extra time to listen to us, so here we are. It's very serendipitous.
As I call it, my wife has too much furloughed time on her hands.
Don't act like you're not enjoying our time together.
Yes.
Wow. All right.
I love our time together.
Says the man who wants to be trapped on a bus or an RV with me.
Hey, that's for a different podcast. Join us in our tiny home adventures.
Okay. That'll be real fun.
It'll be awesome.
Talk about serial killers on a bus together.
Yeah, we can go across the nation talking to or visiting different towns. See? Huh? Maybe even the sites.
Okay.
We're working things out here.
All right. Things are happening.
We could what happened in the woods in other cities.
We could.
Yeah.
There are woods all over the world.
That's right.
Yeah. It's not just up here.
Nope.
All right. So this is going to be a little bit different. Normally, our cases are based in the Pacific Northwest. This one comes to us from Tampa, Florida. And I was kind of thinking maybe we should rename the show What Happens at the Tiger Sanctuary?
No.
You think it's catchy?
No.
No? All right. Well, we are going to dive deep into probably the most talked about topic in the world right now besides our coronacations. And that is, did that bitch, as Joe Exotic has affectionately named her, Carole Baskin of Big Cat Rescue, murder her second husband, Don Lewis?
I'm going to reserve judgment till I hear all the facts in the case.
Yeah, there's not too many facts.
Oh,
I'm going to have to, I mean, there's some. I don't know. I mean, by now, everybody's watched the Netflix show, The Tiger King, Murder, Mayhem, and Madness. Everyone except for Bryce, I would say.
I've caught bits and pieces.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that you kind of half-assed listened while I was watching.
Yeah, I was listening.
And I was trying so hard to explain things to you.
Sorry.
There was just too much. There was too much to go over. And did it not catch your fancy, I guess?
It did. I just had to sit down and watch it. But I think from coming out of, our office here and going in there and just catching like the middle of episodes, I got the gist of most of it. So, yeah.
I don't know that you really did. That's the thing.
Did.
I don't know. There were a lot of twists and turns to that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's everywhere, though. Facebook and Instagram are just flooded with memes about Joe Exotic and Carole Baskin. And, I mean, there's no love lost there.
Yeah.
At the time of the Tiger King episodes being released, Joe Exotic is in prison now, serving 22 years for charges of animal abuse and 2 counts of murder for hire. Which, to be honest with you, probably rightly so.
Yeah.
The show kind of talks about their years-long feud and how Joe wants Carole dead, but it's more than that. And so I'm gonna do a little bit of comparison here. So it was kind of like a trailer park version of a soap opera. And it kind of, I mean, forgive me for saying that. There's some people, don't get me wrong, trailers are amazing. Trailer parks are fine. I got no beef with you. But it just kind of reminded me of the old days when we used to watch Days of Our Lives. And, Stefano kept coming back to life. Marlena was possessed, but she was also a serial killer. It just kept blowing my mind with the twists and the turns, and really reminded me of that. So the difference here, of course, the trailer park is filled with a bunch of exotic animal sanctuary groups, and they have more money than common sense, drug addicts, thrill seekers, and polyamorous relationships. So it had it all.
Yes.
We're going to focus on one thing, one aspect of it, though. So the disappearance and presumed death of Carole Baskin's second husband, Don Lewis.
Okay.
All right. So a little bit of background. Jack Donald Lewis disappeared August 18th, 1997. He was 59 years old at the time. He was a very well-off multimillionaire. By all accounts, he was not like one to show that he had money. Mm-hmm. He didn't really want anybody knowing what he was worth. And even parts of the documentary, they kept kind of talking about it to a few people. And there's an estimate of about 20 million, and there's like a low estimate of about 5 million.
Okay.
And from what I can see, it was probably closer to the 5. But we don't know. So he made most of his money through real estate and used car sales.
Okay.
At the time of his disappearance, he was transporting cars to Costa Rica. Apparently, he had this big love for Costa Rica.
Okay.
Carole states his last words were for her to get a truck ready so that he could leave early in the morning, and that's basically it. He doesn't get in contact with his executive assistant like he should have with some information that she needed on the cars so that she could like prepare documents. So she calls him repeatedly. There's no answer. Saturday and Sunday go by without her reaching him. So she calls Carole. She's like, hey, have you seen him? Have you heard from him? And she says Carole was like, should I call the police? I don't know. And didn't necessarily seem too concerned.
Yeah.
So finally she calls the police on the 19th and reports him missing.
How many days is that?
So by all accounts, like a full 48 hours.
Okay.
Right. So the call goes into Hillsborough County Sheriff's as a missing person. And I don't know, they're kind of, they're not really taking it too seriously either, I guess. They interviewed some people in the documentary, and they kind of said that they hoped that it would just be a case of he wandered off and would show up in a few days. Mm-hmm. So basically, a few days later, they're really looking into it, and they find his van abandoned at like a local airport. The keys are in it, and he's nowhere around. So it's suspected that maybe he got into one of his own planes and disappeared. Carole claims that he lost his pilot's license, and that's well documented. So if he was flying, and he did often illegally, if he was flying, there wouldn't have been a recorded flight. Okay. So there's no way of knowing. Per his business lawyer, his planes wouldn't have made it from Tampa to Costa Rica. He would have had to have made multiple stops. Mm-hmm. I guess usually when he flew down there, he had to go to Miami and fly out commercial. So it wasn't until about 2 weeks later, after his disappearance, that they started to think there was foul play. Okay. The van was brought back to Easy Street, which is where Carole and Don had their, like, it wasn't a sanctuary necessarily at that time. It was more of a zoo. So they brought it back to Easy Street before the police went back to search it a couple of days later. So there's nothing found as far as evidence, and the detectives have nothing to go on to this day. The claim is that it wasn't searched right away, so who knows what might have been missed. So if somebody did intend to do him harm, they had ample opportunity to go and clean up any evidence. Yeah. So, all right, let's get to the good shit. So this is, remember, like a story in a story. Okay. So, I mean, this entire series is 7 episodes. Mm-hmm. Only one episode is on his disappearance. His disappearance could probably be its own episode, to be honest with you. Or like his own series. Okay. So Carole met Don in 1981. She was 20 years old. He was 42. He was married with young kids, and she was married as well. Carole didn't come from a well-off family. She had a pretty rough life early on. Mm-hmm. She left home at 15 and was basically homeless. And by the age of 17, she was married to a manager where she worked. She claimed she never loved him and that they only got married to please her parents because they were shacking up and her parents didn't approve of that.
Okay.
Right. Best reason in the world to get married.
Well, not that she left home, but...
Right.
That's not right.
No, they were very disapproving of what she did.
Whatever.
Yeah. They had one daughter, and it was claimed that the marriage was pretty abusive. So he was... She might have been abusive as well, but pretty much it sounds like he was abusive, and she tried to kind of, stick up for herself.
Yeah.
As Carole tells the story in the documentary, on the night she met Don, she had gotten into a fight with the husband. She ends up walking down the street.
Yeah. And
Don pulls up in a truck, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to ride?" She basically, she says no 3 times, she said. He kept, circling the block. And finally he pulls over and he's like, "I've got this gun right here. I just need somebody to talk to. So get in the car, get in the truck, hold this gun to my head while we drive around so that you feel safe."
I do remember that from
hearing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Joe Exotic thing.
Yeah. So I don't know why you would just have a gun sitting on the seat of your truck while you're driving around.
Yeah.
It's Florida. Maybe they do that. And again, he needed to talk to somebody. So you're just going to pick up somebody who's walking down the highway. You have no idea.
And then offer them your handgun.
Right. He claims he just wants to talk, and more likely it was that he wanted to have sex. So after driving around a little bit, they end up at a motel for the night. She and Don wouldn't be married for another 7 years after this initial meeting, but the relationship carried on that entire time. She actually ended up starting to kind of work for him and help him when he started selling and buying real estate.
Yeah.
But that whole time they were having a relationship and they were still both married. So in 1992, they, finally get married. Don and Carole start buying wild animals at auctions.
Okay.
They spend initially $94,000 to start her facility, which is called Wildlife on Easy Street. It started as a bed and breakfast where people could come and stay in cabins and sleep with the wildlife.
Okay.
Right. So, people get a wild hair if they're asked they want to spend their money. They got nothing else to do. They're going to go sleep with the tiger.
I mean, I guess. I don't want to wake up and...
I don't know how you go to sleep.
Yeah,
There's a tiger in your room. You're going to fall asleep. You're really going to turn your back on a wild animal?
Maybe.
You sure?
Maybe they were chained to the wall and they're just sleeping in the room. I don't know.
Well, that's horrible.
I don't know. Hey, they're first off, they're in a zoo. Come on.
Yeah. They bought and sold and kept wildlife at this quote-unquote sanctuary. In 1996, she made this how-to video about taking care of exotic animals, and I swear somebody dropped acid before they... She looks like the biggest weirdo. She is wearing all of these weird flowy animal print shirts and a wreath made of flowers, and they're walking around their property and she's talking about how they take care of the animals, and it's just, I don't know. So Carole always maintains that she, from the get-go, she wanted to love and care for the animals, while Don looked at it more as a business. It was kind of like a thrill to keep these animals and to buy and trade them and have them around. He got an idea in his head for some reason that they were going to move everything down to Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Because there's no real regulations and laws on this kind of stuff. So the U.S. kind of started getting to where they were not allowing this to happen for just everyday people to have these animals.
Yeah.
And they were starting to, enforce regulations. So he kept saying, I want to move everything down to Costa Rica. And she didn't want to do that because she didn't want him to be able to buy and sell and trade these cats.
Yeah.
So